Hello and welcome to NDTV. I'm Aditya Kaul. His Holiness the Dalai Lama earlier this year came out with a statement finally saying that the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama will happen, and that was a sigh of relief for thousands of supporters of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and all across the globe there were celebrations. But what does this mean for the institution itself, and will China let this happen? And also about the future of the India-China relations. Joining us right now to discuss this and more is Dr. Lobsang Sangay, the former president and Sikyong of the Tibetan Government-in-Exile. Thank you very much, Dr. Sangay, for joining us. I want to begin by asking you, we will get into the institution of Dalai Lama, but you recently saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi visit Tianjin. How do you see that visit? Can India trust China?
I would say no, because if you look at the history, Panchshir was signed in 54, 62 war happened. Atal Bajpai, when he was foreign minister, visited China in 79, Vietnam War happened, right? And then Xi Jinping came to India in 2015, 2017, Doklam happened. And he came in 2019 to celebrate 70th anniversary of diplomatic relationship with India and China. And they were having 70 events all over India and China. And then, in May, June 2020, Galwan happened. So if you look at all these incidences, in Hindi, as we say, kitna baar dhokha mila. Each time India says Hindi chini bhai bhai, and China says bye bye with 62 war and Vietnam war and Doklam and Galwan. So visit to Tianjin, I hope it's a tactical move to, alert, President Trump on the tariff trade. Otherwise, if you put China and India on the table, look at trade, right? $113 billion export from China to India. And India exports only $14 billion. So there's like $99 billion trade deficit. Border incursion, neighboring country, is seeking support for China. So every angle you look at it, historically till now, India is constrained by China. So you simply cannot trust China. Not that India doesn't want to, but each time India tries, and dhokha hi dhokha milte raha hai.
Are you trying to suggest, Dr. Sangay, that the expansionist tendency of Xi Jinping or China is only going to continue? There is no end to that. And the reset in the ties between Beijing and New Delhi that's being spoken about is not a reality. The reality is very different.
It's not going to happen, because look at Himalayan region right now. China is building railway line from Xinjiang all the way to the Nitri, the Kongpo area, just across Arunachal Pradesh. The other railway line that they bringing from Chengdu to Lhasa again to Nitri, right? And they already have a railway line from Golmut to Lhasa to Nitri. Nitri is just across Arunachal, and China says Arunachal is South Tibet. So whole of Himalayan belt, not only they have 4-lane highways, military airfield in Nitri, now they're bringing high-speed railway line. So infrastructure-wise, they are developing in such a way to invade and attack, parts of India, and most likely in Arunachal Pradesh. So I've always said this. Tibet is the palm, and we must go after 5 fingers. Ladakh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, and Arunachal. They are already coming after 5 fingers. Why? Because what they say is anyone who controls Himalayas will control South Asia. Right? Will dominate South Asia, means dominate India. So not only China has occupied Tibet, they're coming after 5 fingers. Once they control 5 fingers, they will dominate South Asia. They want to dominate India. So, geopolitically speaking, they want to put India in its place so that they can go on to become number one.
China often says, and more so in the recent weeks, that there should be mutual respect. We saw the foreign minister of China visit New Delhi, meet Ajit Doval and Dr. Jaishankar, and then Prime Minister visiting Tianjin. But will this mutual respect really happen? Because time and again, China says that the boundary talks or the boundary question should not become an impediment or an irritant for the overall bilateral relations between India and China. But then they again come and rename villages in Arunachal Pradesh. Whenever Dalai Lama visits Arunachal Pradesh or Ladakh or other places, it issues statements, etc. So can China be trusted on that level?
No, mutual trust has to be from both sides. India tried, every time I give you historical context, all those key dates, right? But now even you talked about, the border, LAC, China has built 300 villages. As per New York Times, they did satellite images, right, and written out. huge expose last October, November, all the way from Pakistan to Burma, 300 villages inside LAC, on LAC and outside LAC. Not only that, Doklam, they have built a helipad, a huge military camp. Doklam also, they have built a huge military camp. And, so border incursion has happened always from Chinese side to India's side. That's why in Delhi, I have so many friends, they always say, Chinese strategy is do kadam aage. So mutual respect, ek kadam piche. But they are always do kadam aage. They keep getting, one kadam inside. So that has always been the case. I don't know how many times India can go back and say Hindi Chini bye bye, and each time China says bye bye, and then you keep going back. So I really don't see, because ultimately China wants to be number one in the world. To be number one, you have to be number one of the region, and you have to make sure that number two is nowhere near you. So they want to constrain, India in such a way that you are put in place that you can nowhere come near and compete with you. Especially, China says Pakistan is their weather-tested friend or all-weather friend. They're armed, equipped with, Chinese technology, Chinese guns. Even in the Sindhu operation, right? Even the terrorists were using AK-47 made in China. Bullets were made in China, and the Indians were killed with the bullets of China. And now, we've been saying it for 60 years, that everywhere, especially in India. So after Galwan, there's a bit of realization that we really cannot trust, China. But still, this kind of thought happens, and we have to come back and remind India, how many times you want your heart to be broken? If your boyfriend, girlfriend, after 2 breakups, you give up, After 14 breakups, India still doesn't want to give up and say, let's reset, Your heart is cut 14 times, so you're still, tying up with the scotch tape and going back and saying Hindi Chini bye-bye. Anyway, Chini word is sugar, It's bad for health.
Certainly bad for health and can get you diabetes. But let me get
not just diabetic.
Yeah.
More sugar in your brain is dementia. Yeah. More sugar in your liver is fatty liver. In every context, Hindi should not touch Chini at all.
All right, fair enough. I take your point there. But let me get to the crux of the matter. And that is the big announcement by His Holiness the Dalai Lama on his reincarnation. And he has given the sole, I would say, the custody to the Gadan Phodrang Trust that will decide after the passing of the Dalai Lama who the successor really is. Who will be the successor? Will the successor be from China, from India, or from any other country?
I'll give you a book later. His Holiness written a book called Voice for the Voiceless, right? In that, he made it very clear that His Holiness Dalai Lama reincarnation will be born outside of China, in a free world. So His Holiness reincarnation will not be born in China. And ultimately, it's his reincarnation, his individual choice, where to be born, when to be born. Ultimately, he decides, right? Now, he has delegated the authority to Ganden Phorang Trust. We say trust because it's registered in India. Otherwise, this Ganden Phorang is a historical institution established from the very beginning, from the first and second Dalai Lama, right? So they are authorized. And in that also, a statement, he made it very clear. In the last 14 years, his followers from all over, from Tibet, Mongolia, Russia, whole the Himalayan belt, India, and all over the world, appeal to him, pray that his reincarnation will continue. Thereby, the Guru, after listening to the prayers of the chelas and the followers, has blessed us with this reincarnation, and the institution of Dalai Lama will continue. Contrast that. No one is asking Chinese government to, do anything about reincarnation. In fact, we are saying, back off, stay away. Still, they want to control. They are not interested in reincarnation or religion or spirituality. In fact, they say religion is poison, but they want to control the office of the Dalai Lama so that they can have a puppet Dalai Lama telling all the Buddhists in the Himalayan region, hey, you should come towards China, away from India. They want to use that office. So India should be aware and alert. This is another dokha in their making. Having said that, Dalai Lama decides, Ganden Phorang decides, and a monk-led group, Regent or Regency, will preside over the search committee, and then we will find the real reincarnation of Dalai Lama. So that is positive news for us.
Well, Dr. Sangay, Dalai Lama has also had a very rich cultural, historical association with India. He has given lectures, he has given inspiration to millions of Indians as well. So could there be a possibility that the future Dalai Lama could be from India? And if that happens, how will China take it?
Possibly, because it's always Guru-Chera relationship. For example, fourth Dalai Lama was born in Mongolia because third Dalai Lama went to Mongolia, taught there, he died there. And then he liked Mongolian Chelas, wanted the Dalai Lama to be born in Mongolia, and he came back in Mongolia. So, he has spent 60 plus years in India now. He calls himself proud son of India. Because he says, my gyan, my brain is made up of Nalanda wisdom, and my body is all dal and bhat, So, of course, India is high. If you have to categorize which countries, then India will be, among top, very high. And now, it doesn't matter what China thinks, because they're going to complain anyways, right? His Holiness is one of the greatest leader in the world who believes in peace, compassion, non-violence, and they have been criticizing him throughout his life, calling all kinds of names, Whole world loves Dalai Lama, okay? Only country and only Communist Party that doesn't like Dalai Lama is Chinese. So, they will say what they want, and it's irrelevant, It's sad, but they will interfere. And they will put a young boy through a miserable life, They will say he's the Dalai Lama. Tibetans will not follow, like the present, Chinese fake pension Lama. But they are going to put that boy and the Tibetan family through a very unpleasant experience just to control the office.
What happens to the original Panchen Lama who has been missing for a very long time? And, what is the current situation in Tibet? Because Tibet is almost cut off from the rest of the world. We do not get regular updates on the situation of the people. For years together, there were protests that were happening there. There were self-immolations that were happening there. What is the situation today? Recently, an Indian media delegation that went to Kailash Mansarovar was taken through Tibet, perhaps to show a new kind of a Tibet from the lens of the Chinese Communist Party. But what's the situation there, and what happens to Panchen Lama?
Sadly, at the age of 10 Panchen Lama died, and his reincarnation was actually found by the Tashlumbo monastery, his monastery. And the name was sent to Dalai Lama. He endorsed it. He made the announcement in 95. And that boy has disappeared. His family members have disappeared for 30 years. They kidnapped him, right? And that's what the Chinese government or the Chinese world order is. They will kidnap a boy and a family and make them disappear for 30 years. That's how cruel they are to the family and to the boy. Now, in his place, they appointed Genzin Nobu, whose parents are Communist Party members, as the Panchen Lama, a fake one, And now he's being shown around to Tibetans as the Panchen Lama, and Tibetans don't follow him. Mainly because he spent all these years in Beijing. Instead of studying in Tashlumbo monastery, his monastery, right? So Tibetans are not following. Very sad. Now, in Tibet, they are taking 1 million Tibetan children pushed to study in boarding schools so that they can be brainwashed, made them into Chinese. But that also shows that in the last 60 years, China has not succeeded in converting or making Tibet into a Chinese province and Tibetan into Chinese, right? Still, the resistance goes on. And you're right, 137 Tibetans have committed self-immolation, of which 120 plus died. Most of them when I was Sikyong, So I have this heavy heart thinking about all those people who burned themselves and died sacrificing for a Tibetan cause. They want to see the return of Dalai Lama to Tibet and free Tibet. That's what they were calling for. So situation in Tibet is very grim because Freedom House, comes out with index every year. And Tibet is listed among the least free region comparable to Syria, worse than North Korea. Because even journalists have better access to North Korea than Tibet. So it's very, sad situation. Having said that, the resistance inside Tibet, the courage and the bravery of Tibet inside is very strong. That's why tomorrow is Wednesday. Wednesday in Lhasa and Chengdu, from Dharamsala to Toronto to New York to Belakupi, all the Tibetans, younger generation, come out and dance and sing in the traditional attire, celebrating their identity, celebrating their culture. And that is also a form of asserting their identity despite the repression that's inside Tibet.
Dr. Sangay, when External Affairs Minister Jaishankar had to visit Beijing just a few weeks back, China issued a statement and said that Tibet remains a thorn in the ties between India and China. Do you think that that is the reason that Beijing continuously rakes up the issue of Kashmir? Do you think that is the reason that Beijing continues to support Pakistan and Pakistan-sponsored terrorism when it erupts in India? Beijing is completely silent on that. So, do they, on one hand, want to eradicate and end Buddhism in Tibet and in China, mainland China, and on the other hand, support Pakistan when it commits terrorism and violence against Indians in Kashmir?
No, it's other way around. As I said, from the very beginning, they said Tibet is the palm. So we go after 5 fingers, right? And Ladakh, Kashmir, Nepal, Bhutan, Arunachal. So they are coming out of 5 fingers. And to give excuses, they're saying, oh, because Tibetans are in India, which is, 2 lakhs people, in 1.4 billion people. We are nobody. I mean, we are a very small in number. But they are aiding Pakistan to constrain India. And why are they supporting Sri Lanka? Why are they supporting Maldives? Why are they supporting Bangladesh? Why are they in Nepal? Why are they in Bhutan? Why are they in Southeast Asia, right? Why even when the Kashmiri terrorists, who's, even the UN and many countries can condemn him, they can't label him a terrorist because China comes at the UN to block resolutions against India. It has been going on, right? So it's other way around. They want to come after 5 fingers because you control Himalaya, you dominate India and South Asia. So these are all excuses. And India, I think we have always said this, made a mistake. When Tibet was invaded, India did not speak enough. India did not support enough. That's why, now Chinese army are right at the border. Now they're building the biggest dam on Brahmaputra. 60,000 megawatt, okay? That will provide electricity to 300 million household in Tibet and China, So right at the border. And then now, if India doesn't protest and give up, then it's a loss for India.
Dr. Lobsang Sangay, have there been instances or attempts by China for regime change in different countries? And if we speak in the Indian context, the Chinese embassy here in Delhi, does it resort to such tactics?
Yes. Elite cooperation has been an ancient strategy of China. Their tentacles are everywhere. They try to buy leaders, they try to buy intellectuals, business people, journalists, you just name it, right? Any influential person, nowadays including YouTubers, That's how they did it in Tibet. They bought some aristocrats, businessmen, a few lamas also. That's how they came in, right? So similarly, they did in Xinjiang, in Mongolia, Manchuria. That's how they do it. So it's a fact that in Nepal, one party supports China and one party supports India, right? In Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives, So how does it happen? Because it's elite cooptation. In Pakistan, all the parties at the moment, right, supports China. So, even in Africa, there are cases. I've been to European countries as well. I've seen some ministers who speak very, positively about China, later lands up as a director of a Chinese company and receiving, 100, 200,000, even $888,000 salary a year. There is a case. So I've seen this all. So elite cooptation is an ancient strategy. Even in India, they do it. They'll come after politicians, journalists, business people, all the business people who are, engaged in doing business in China, they will try to buy them off. Now, you just have to go check, Chinese embassy's National Day celebration and see who all are invited, who go there to, participate. And then you will have the photographs and the names. Does not necessarily mean all of them are or were bought, but Chinese are trying. And some of them definitely, and then they will keep trying. That's how they operate.
So will you give a word of caution to not just the Indian government led by Prime Minister Modi, but also the opposition leaders?
Everyone to be cautious. Chinese are very good. So that's why, they're very good. For example, Henry Kissinger is a brilliant guy, right? He's one of the most brilliant guys, but he spent whole life in praise of China. His strategy that once you engage with China and then the middle class will grow, China's economy will grow, and China will become democratic and more like America.
Right.
And America and the West invested in his theory, right? And what happened? Now, after 30 years, America and European countries all are saying that's a wrong strategy. Instead of China becoming more democratic and open, they are becoming more adversarial and directly challenging, the West. So they have learned a little too late. And, I hope it will be a caution to anyone who thinks that you can engage with China and profit from them. Is a bad news, because already India is engaged in trade with China, and India buys about $113 billion a year from China, which means less factories, less manufacturing, less jobs in India, right? And then India exports only $14 billion a year. So meaning India buys $99 billion worth of goods more from China than India sells them. So it's not only lopsided, it's extreme case.
You mentioned about India's neighborhood. So I have to ask, I just came from Kathmandu. I was there inside the Nepal parliament when the parliament was burning and there were angry, violent protests. Do you see some kind of a role in China, China trying to motivate or influence the government in Nepal for continuously? What about Bangladesh? What about Sri Lanka?
Chinese are very good at buying off leaders. They don't know how to, deal with people as such. So the protest that happened in Nepal is, primarily, I don't want to say primarily, but majorly against China. Because all these leaders, they were, supported by China, maybe few by India as well. But, obviously corruption was a major issue. Nepo kids was also a major issue. But in Asia, corruption is a relative term, whether you're a ruling party or opposition party, right? So the overthrowing of these ruling elites was against China. I think they were, surprised, because this is an, bottom-up, assertion by ordinary Nepali people to overthrow corrupt leaders, to assert their power. But now you mentioned in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, also in, Pakistan, youth are supporting Imran Khan, right? Even in Bhutan, 30% of youth, they migrate to Australia. But this is a larger phenomenon. This is a problem with the global south. We talk about youth dividend in India, but it's a dividend if there's employment. If there's no employment, it's a disaster. Right. So now you have 1.92 billion youth in the global south. They need employment. You don't provide employment and people resist and overthrow you. So that's what's happened. So that's tried to happen in Indonesia as well. And also in Egypt and Tunisia. Whole Arab Spring was a result of that. So this is a continued upheaval that you will see in global south, because it's impossible to create 2 billion, employment in global. That's why India and America should sign the tariff agreement, right? And India should attract FDI and technology from America and the West, so India could develop, and to generate employment. And that, it's a win-win for both sides.
I want to get into Taiwan now. We saw what in the last few years has happened in Hong Kong. We've seen the national security law, a lot of journalists and activists being arrested without a fair trial. And now in Taiwan, a lot of aggression being shown by the military jets of China continuously into the Taiwanese air zone. Do you feel that the Chinese are now inching closer for a full-scale invasion in Taiwan?
Yes. Mainly because Xi Jinping has said 3 times to get ready to prepare and invade Taiwan. And he also gave a deadline of 2027 to fully modernize, right, Chinese army, navy, military, missiles and rockets and all that, And also the former Admiral, Davidson, Indo-Pacific, the operation, Admiral has come out and said by 2027, they will have more Navy power and aircraft and all that to invade Taiwan, more than America, right? And also CIA chief has said. So 2027 is definitely a tipping point. When soon after, I've also been to Taiwan, I've talked to some of the top advisors, and they all said it's sooner or later invasion will happen. They all are, wary of that. And because for any Chinese leader, it doesn't matter whether Xi Jinping or not, they have built up their nationalism to the extent to occupy Taiwan has become a part of the, part of nationalism and part of their achievement. So it has to happen. When that happens, if Taiwan is occupied, America and India cannot afford to stand still, because to lose Taiwan means to lose whole of Southeast Asia and East Asia, because they will say, it's better to align with the bully next door than, the aid of the allies somewhere far off who will promise but never come. So then China can say, we are number one of Asia. Now we'll come up to America to be number one in the world.
The West often says that the China doesn't believe in the international rules-based order. And for that, there is a creation of a Quad where Japan, Australia, India and US play a significant role. But over the last few weeks and months, the strengthening of the Quad instead has weakened. We've seen Donald Trump also could be visiting India for the Quad summit that India would be hosting. What do you think should be the emphasis of the Quad? Do you think America, like before, should give credibility to the Quad because this is one such international forum that keeps China under check?
Absolutely. Because, Quad came about, many actors, but mainly, for late Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, right? He says we need an alliance of democracies in Asia. And then he, really pushed for Indo-Pacific, the definition of Indo-Pacific region as well. So then now Australia, India, and, Japan and America has come. And yes, they have this Malabar exercise with Navy. And then now they should expand and become more alert. Because as I said, to lose Taiwan is not simply to lose an island, to lose whole of Asia. And then obviously, the microchips as well, right? Semiconductor as well. So it's a heavy price the world and Asia will pay to lose Taiwan. So forming an alliance with all the democracies in Asia to counter, to check rather, not to contain, but to check Taiwan is very important. And I hope, President Trump and in the US and Washington DC, there's a consensus to strengthen Quad. And his team, especially Secretary of State Marco Rubio is, and then he's also National Security Advisor. He's very well informed. He's from Cuba. He's anti-communist. He has criticized China. He's banned from entering China. You know that because
Right.
he spoke for Tibet and for human rights. And so there are many people who, even in the administration, who knows and wants to strengthen Quad.
Final question to you about the US administration. Do you expect, because in the past there have been delegations from America, American politicians, the congressmen visiting His Holiness the Dalai Lama, will there be a meeting between President Donald Trump and Dalai Lama?
I would say theoretically, yes, because all the presidents of America have met with His Holiness, right? Biden also promised during election campaign, but His Holiness never visited DC, so the meeting did not happen. And President Trump had extended invitation to His Holiness, wishing him, 85th birthday, and invited him to the White House. So the letter is still there, but it's just that His Holiness is not traveling now, So that's why it's unlikely. But if His Holiness goes to Washington, D.C., I do feel the meeting will happen.
All right, the meeting will happen, and let's hope that there is positivity and there is more power to the Tibetan cause. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Dr.
so
Sangay,
much.
for joining us.
Thank you.